All right, all right, all right. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. So, what is what is what is fear? Let's play a game real quick. We waited a minute. Minute's pretty good. That's don't want to make people wait. First of all, thanks for letting me hop in your world for a moment, and let's just talk about something. It, if you would have asked me Friday at lunch if I thought that this would be my fifth Facebook Live, probably 15th if you count the times I tried to hop on and the connection wasn't there or it got dropped or whatever nerd word you want to put for that, it would have been hard to believe because it's really not my style, right? I might give advice on how to do it and how to place your hashtags, what time to post, and all these different things. But it's something I let the old people have Facebook, right? I like to play on TikTok and Snapchat. And so, but I've done quite a few posts since yesterday afternoon. It came out of an understanding of this hysteria that was happening. You know, one of my core goals is to reduce human suffering. I wish we could get rid of human suffering altogether, right? And I'm convinced that the place that people suffer most is in silence in between their ears. You know, that's where we suffer the most. And it's almost like this coronavirus, the Wuhan flu, whatever crazy word you want to insert into that, it's caused people to express outwardly what they've been going through inwardly. And that is sheer hysteria, anxiety, stress. I was just talking to somebody. My dog got out and I was having a conversation. And you would not believe the people who deal with stress on a daily basis. I mean, it's just, and so stress is the silent killer. They've been telling us for a while. So yesterday when I found out the school was canceled and all that, and I'm kind of hip to it, I'm like, cool, we'll get to spend more time. And then I seen how people really, they were responding to this. And then when I did the Snapchat last night with with the Rouse, and, you know, just how people are pushing multiple buggies, hurricane preparedness. People are saying 2-week quarantine, Rouses are going to close. I'm talking to the people at Rouse, the Epicurean, because I'm in there all the time. I mean, some of them thought it was funny. Some of them were so frustrated because the people they were dealing with, it was like the world was ending and all people wanted to do was get pork chops. And I mean, I thought it was funny. And then some people, you know, didn't think it was too cool that I thought it was funny because I guess it's really not when you really look at the hysteria that we really believe the world's ending and the life as we know it's going to turn into AMC's The Walking Dead. And the answer to that is a basket of pork chops and a whole bunch of water, right? And so I really started playing a game with the way irrationale works, right? The way irrational thought works and how fear can systemically produce irrational thought, but fear can also be brought on by irrational thought. And it's almost like that little recycle arrow that you see. Remember back in the day when it first came out, recycle, reduce, reuse, and close the loop. You remember that old thing? That's marketing right there, right? Remember the song? But going further. So it's this deal where irrational thought produces fear. Fear produces emotion, which produces irrational thought. Then that irrational thought produces more fear, more chemicals. So we go into chemical overload, right? And when you really start to look at some of this, it's like, wow. So people are suffering here. They're suffering in silence, but they don't feel comfortable enough to talk about being afraid, being deadly afraid. Then enter Wuhan, enter coronavirus, enter COVID-19. It gets deadlier and deadlier in the way they're saying it, right? And it's like, then you look at that and you see, well, we go from shell shocked, we go from war torn, and we go to stress disorders, post traumatic stress disorder. Now it's CPTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder. Look, I'm not making light of anything, right? But I am 100% convinced of some things. I'm going to share them with you. And I was driving and sharing some stuff, and not really delivering what I was seeing, doing my best to share. But because I was driving and people were telling me to put my seatbelt on, and I probably shouldn't have been posting while I was driving. Wisdom says don't do it. Wait till you get somewhere. But I didn't deliver the content properly. So let me share this with you. So fear is something that we all experience. Like, for instance, I'm going to get on, and Stephen, still even in this moment right now, there's a feeling I have in my hands, right? Where my hands are feeling a certain way because I'm going to experience certain emotional things somewhere over here, okay, while I do what right here is saying I need to do in here. But I'm still having an inward response to something I'm producing externally, right? So I call it the F3 concept, right? Freeze, fight, or flight, right? And so when you think about it, I'm not a hunter, but people hunt. When the deer, the moose, the elk, whatever, hears a sound or catches a scent, the first thing it does is it freezes. Then it assesses the situation. Now, if they're a good hunter, that's when they do their deal, right? Boom, and you're done. Dinner served. And sorry for anybody that doesn't hunt. Just an illustration. The first thing we do is freeze. And then we have to make a decision based on our limbic system if we should run away or fight through, right? We have to make a decision. We do it, and we do it ever so quickly, right? If we're going to run from it or push through it. Okay, like even right now, I'm getting ideas in my head. Just hang up press N, right? Be done with it. Just get out, forget about it. So fear is something that comes up, and we manage it, right? Fear is the thing that if it's managed appropriately, it will keep you alive longer. It will keep you alive longer. For instance, if you are in New York City or if you're in New Orleans, okay, and you looking over the edge of a building, say you get rooftop access, and you're looking over the edge of a building, that feeling you get that you don't want to fall and you need to back away from the edge of the building? Fear is producing that. Fear is in us for our survival. Fear is part of our survival mechanism, right? Hot pots on a stove, we scare the fire out of kids, right? We tell them they're going to burn themselves, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, don't do this, don't do that. And we scare the kid not to touch the hot stove with fear, right? Fear is something that they used to tell me when I was a little kid, don't make that face at those people, your face will get stuck like that, right? Boy, I wish I would have listened, right? Fear is something that we manage. It's something that's a part of who we are. We manage fear. Fear is something that is in us. Now, at the same time, while I'm sharing this psychological stuff, I hear fear is a liar, right? I can hear this song. I don't know if you know the song, but it's fear is a liar. And so there is a certain irrationale to fear that it's not truthful, right? For instance, the sitcom in your head, right? The this is going to happen, then if this happens, then that's going to make that happen, then if that happens, I call that a descending pattern of thought. It's descending. We take a thought in the brain, we experience this inward situation with a thought, and then we get the chemicals that support that particular thing. Then the chemicals take us to the next level, and then we go from descending, right? So if you can go into descending patterns of thought, you can also go into ascending patterns of thought. Right now, in one of the posts this morning or last night, I don't remember what it was. I think it was on Facebook. Talked about Philippians 4:8. Right, think on these things. It gives you a guideline of what to think on. Right. So how are we using our minds? Now, I want to draw a sharp contrast right now. Fear is an emotion that we feel, but courage is something that we choose to have. Courage is like joy. See, like happiness is a feeling, like I'm in my feelings, I feel happy, or I feel sad, or I feel depressed, right? It's the way we say those things. But people have joy, or they have courage, right? It's a different predicate that's used to drive that noun. It's something we use to drive it. I'm not meaning to be a nerd, but just bear with me for a minute. It might unlock something. So now we understand, hopefully, that courage is something that sits right here. It's something that we choose to have. If you are not afraid and push through your fear, okay, then you're having an ordinary day or you're being overwhelmed by fear. Courage is the thing that we get to experience that helps us it helps to propel us into that next thing, past that emotional response, past that thing that kind of clogs us up a little bit and makes us say, do I run away or do I fight through? Do I run away or do I fight through? And you know what the sad fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what the sad fact of the matter is, some people are frozen in life. They can't make another decision. They're scared to death to make a decision. The last two decisions they made, they don't feel like was the best one. People judge them harshly for it. So they get caught into a pattern of not making a decision. And so eventually indecision becomes their decision by default. Here I am, a call came in. So sorry. So because they chose to, where was I at? Oh yeah, because they chose not to make a decision, they chose to live in fear, guess what happened? Or they chose just not to push through, not to persevere. Now all of a sudden that is a decision, and so now they have a life that they're living that's not even the life that they want to live. But they're too, see how my hand's shaking? Nervous as could be, right? Nervous as could be. I'm just going to address it real quick because I don't want to keep just stuttering around the idea, right? And sorry the call came in, I lost some people. But even right now, I'm having to make constant decisions. I'm having to make constant decisions to stay focused on the task and have this conversation, okay? Because I really, in my heart, I believe it's going to help somebody that's suffering in silence. We cannot suffer in silence. It's too much. So we have to make sure that we allow our brain to use fear to help keep us alive. Now, when you get into spiritual things, there's certain principles like God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So that's something that's extraordinarily different than just understanding fear. Let's use the word caution in being cautious. One of my uncles, he's a very cautious guy. He's not afraid of anything, but he's very cautious. He moves slow and methodical. I respect him so much for it, right? I'm like, let's take off running and get there. And he's like, let's think about it. Jesus was never in a hurry. And I'm like, okay. So caution is something that's different from fear. Fear is something that causes us to freeze or feel like we have to run away or have to fight. Being cautious is something that we just use our mind for, we use our spirit for, we have understanding with. We just take our time to get where we have to go. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, okay? 12 minutes into this thing. That's cool. Let's see. All right. What is a placebo? When you think about in the medical sense, what is a placebo? What is that? What do they call a placebo? When they say placebo, what are they talking about? Okay, and I've been asking this question across the country in a couple different places because it came to me while I watched a talk. I don't think it was a TED talk; it was another talk, and I'll spare you the details on it. But they were talking about a placebo, so I asked myself a question: what is a placebo? And basically, a placebo, I'll give you the answer. A placebo is a belief that something outside the body can positively affect something that's happening on the inside the body. Okay? Now, if you've been paying attention the last 25, 30 years, you know they give placebo in medicine, and they give a certain test group the actual medication that they're testing, and they give a certain test group. It's sugar pills or it's some kind of whatever, right? A placebo is a belief that something outside the body can bring healing, health, happiness, wholeness, joy inside the body, right? Because when you're sick, you're suffering, right? And when you're not sick, you're in a state of ease. That's why they call it dis-ease, right? It's not easy. Life doesn't become easy. There's no ease to life. Now you are really digging in to see how, in fact, are we going to make this work now that I got this, whatever you believe you got, right? And so you start thinking about stuff like, what is a placebo? And so then when you analyze what a placebo is and you fundamentally go a little bit deeper, you understand what's actually happened. You have a thought that when you take a sugar pill, that sugar pill, you think it's medicine. And so because you think it's medicine, you express belief, faith, right? And you express that into something external. And so then you bring it internal. And then now it's internal and you have faith and you believe that this is going to work and you get better. Taking water pills, you get better. Taking sugar pills, you get better. Why is that? Why is it that you get better? If you could get better on your own, wouldn't you just get better? If you could figure out a way to not have certain ailments or certain sufferings or certain things happen, and wouldn't you just make yourself better? Right? That's what my first thing, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. So you mean to tell me that if I pretended to take a placebo, I might be able to get the same response as if I took a placebo? And in a certain test group, that placebo is like real medicine. So I started playing a game, right? Started playing a game with my mind with fear. Because now, if thoughts outside the body, if beliefs in things outside the body can produce a thought inside the body and that make you healthy, can external stimulus outside the body produce a thought and it make you unhealthy? Can you have a thought that makes you sick? You ever met somebody, they got whatever's going around, they caught it. It's because of that one time at band camp or whatever. They got whatever sickness is going around, and they're I want to be careful because I don't hurt anybody's feelings. It's one of those things. I want to say something real quick. Depression is only the habit of being discouraged. It's just the habit of being discouraged is what depression is. But then some people say that they're depressed, right? And so depressed and discouraged and despondent and broken and tattered and torn, and we call that a descending pattern of thought. We're descending. We're just getting lower and lower. The emotions are getting worse and worse. Worse and worse. How do we fix it? How do we shore up against that? How do we make sure that that doesn't happen? How can we make sure that we build a boundary in our mind? That way we can excel on this highway, right? How do you do it? What do you do? What are some of the fundamental things? Well, first of all, one side of the road that you're on is faith. And the other side of the road is gratitude. Faith and gratitude. I know he can, and I'm so happy he will. Faith and gratitude have to be the boundaries. If you haven't realized yet, stress is making you sick. 100%. Forget about it. Stress is making you sick. The doctor is not in it to cure you. The doctor is in it to keep you a patient. Okay? Sounds horrible, I know. There's some doctors that are cool, right? It's about vaccinations. It's about copays. It's about waiting lists. If it would be different, you wouldn't wait for 3 hours in a room while the guy's playing golf or the gal's playing golf. You wouldn't be sitting there waiting for 3 hours. They would be taking care of you. They'd be properly staffed. There would be a whole different, but it's not supposed to. It's just sharing, right? If sharing is caring, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to keep these calls from coming in. So let me get back on track. I was talking about boundaries, faith and gratitude. Those are the railings, right? And we could break faith and gratitude. Wow, we could break faith and gratitude down another time, really dig into it. But I just want to talk about some stuff. Your immune system is tied to stress, and your immune system is tied to alkalinity. How alkaline are you? When you're sick, you test acidic. When you get sick, you are acidic. You have to stay alkaline. I'll give you this right here. Lemons, raw, squeezed into water. Lemons is the only citrus fruit that metabolizes into an alkaline. Well, you need to eat 40 lemons. No, you don't need to eat 40 lemons, okay? Thank you very much. You squeeze 2 lemons in the morning, start with 1, but get to 2. You squeeze 2 lemons in the morning, and it'll make about that much in a coffee cup, and then you just double it with water, and then you chase that with water all day long. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. That your future self will tell you thank you because you did something right now. Just start drinking lemon every day. So if your immune system is directly tied to stress, that means stress is directly linked to the immune system response. Right? Yes. So if I'm stressed out, that means my immune system won't respond as well as if I'm healthy. Yes. Yes, 100%. So what controls stress? What is one of the factors that controls stress? What goes on right here? See this shiny ball head? This is what controls stress. No, don't get it twisted. There's external stimulants outside of the body that cause us to have to make the decision inside the body. But it goes directly to what value we assign to something. If I assign a value to something, then all of a sudden it's that away, right? And that's how I remember it. So if somebody does something to me, or see, that's a perfect way to, if they do something to me, then I'm going to take it a certain way. If somebody does something and it affects me, I'm going to do it a certain way. So how I assign the value of the data coming in matters the most. It absolutely matters the most. You know what I'm saying? So now something happens and it comes to me. Now I have to make a decision how I'm going to respond or if I'm going to react. Whether I'm reacting or responding is directly tied to my state of emotional equilibrium. Okay, how balanced am I in my emotions? Am I all jacked up on sugar and caffeine because I got 19 cups of coffee and I'm like getting ready to schizo out and yell at somebody because I've got my central nervous system is so agitated that the slightest little jot or tittle brings me to somewhere I don't want to go? See, how we prep our body matters, right? What we put into it. I'm 11 from 50, right? I give you my age, Common Core style. You could figure it out later, but I'm 11 from 50. And I wish I would have learned years ago what I know today. And that is how I eat and how I drink is going to directly help me deal with the things that happen here. I'm going to either be primed for failure or primed for success, primed to be agitated or primed to be at peace. And look, the Holy Spirit comes in and we work through things with Christ and that whole deal. I understand that. But there's a certain level to this thing that we're either redlining at sevens, our adrenal glands have done all that they can do and our skin's crawling from the sugar, or we somewhere hovering over here just ready to shift gears, we cool. You see, in order to make a memory, you need 3 things, right? You need something to happen. You assign a value to that something that happens. So in other words, something happens and you say, this means this, or this means that, or they meant this, okay? So, and there's a third one. Oh, my brain would go blank. I went on and on and on. 3 things, an event, of assigned value, and I won't be able to remember the third one, but there's 3 things. And so we put that together, rookie mistake there. We put those 3 things together and all of a sudden we have a memory, right? How we assign those values matters, right? the things we do to assign. I'm going to take notes and I'll give you that later. What makes and I'll get that back to you. Okay. And so something happens and we decide, were they having a bad day or were they doing something to hurt me? And how I assign that value is going to directly figure out what is my response going to be. So what does this have to do with stress? Well, the thoughts that we think control the emotions that we feel, and the emotions that we feel directly influence how we're going to react or respond. And so if I think different thoughts, well, I have different feelings. Well, the obvious answer is yes. If I take a placebo and I have a belief that something outside the body is going to have a positive outcome on something inside the body, I have a much different response than if I just don't take anything at all. So if I choose to think a certain kind of thoughts, let's call it the Philippians 4:8 principle. If I choose to think certain kind of thoughts, then I'm going to be primed for success when it comes to being in a state of emotional equilibrium. I prime myself to be able to be where I need to be so that I can process the data appropriately, right? Because how we deal with pain, how we process pain, how we process disappointment. When I say pain, I mean disappointment, failure, setbacks, all these different negative words. How I process pain is the most important thing that I'm going to do, right? It's not who I'm high-fiving when something cool happens. Is where do I go in my heart? Where do I go in my heart? Where do I go in my heart when something happens that I don't necessarily think is something cool? What do I say about the person that did it or how it came to life? All that matters, right? I wonder why they call it a root of bitterness. You ever thought about that, right? First the seed, then the root, then the shoot, then the stem, then the stalk, then the leaf, then the flower, then finally the fruit. And then we get fruit and we're like, oh, it's gone. It's in the... No, it's not, man. Tend your garden. We have to tend our garden. So back to this. So stress is directly linked to the immune system. And I know that depending on what emotional state I'm in is going to determine my reaction or my response. So I have a theory, right? I call it the bucket theory, right? And a more fun way to say it is called drops and ripples. And it goes like this. I could be dealing with life. I'm having a situation and I'm dealing with it. And on an ordinary day, it would not be that big a deal, right? It's no big deal at all. I'm dealing with life and I'm rocking and rolling. And so you drop that drop into my bucket. But because I'm in a good place and I'm stable and I'm dealing with life appropriately, now that drop comes in, it makes the little ripples, but nothing spills over. There's no leakage, there's no spilling. You take that same bucket and you fill that bucket all the way to the brim, right? Like my cup runneth over, but in opposite world. And you drop that one drop inside that bucket and it ripples come out, same ripples as before, no big deal. Guess what happens? We have an emotional response or emotional reaction. And now we have water all around the bucket dripping onto the floor, okay? And now the buckets, you have less fluid in your bucket now, but it's way more messy all around it. That's how stress affects the body. The more we internalize things and we stew on it, right? Just simmering it with it. We wondering why they did. How could they do that to me? Why did they do that to me? The truth of the matter is they didn't do anything to you. They did something for themselves. We're assigning a certain value to it. So now the value we assign to it gives us not so good feelings. So now we have not so good feelings. So now we have not so good thoughts. But now, because of the process we've chosen to go under, remember the descending pattern? Now we're expressing that outward. And now we make it about them. Make it about the other person. No. Responsibility lies here, right? The state of mind that we go into, it matters. Having the right mindset matters. Mindset matters more than anything. With the right mindset, the sky's not even the limit for a stepper like you when you have the right mindset. Does that make sense? Kind of get lost in my conversation right now, but it's gonna come out. So balancing the emotions is the most important thing we can do. We have to find safe outlets to balance the emotions. I call them primers or anchors. Okay, you have a primer that you know when you do this, it's going to make you do that, right? In some of the sports, the primers, the teams are jumping all in a circle around each other, talking smack. In New Zealand, they do the hookah dance or whatever it's called for, I believe it's rugby. They prime their physiology, they prime their mind, they prime their physiology to do something, to conquer something, to not be defeated. We have to find those things that we can go inside, and we go inside of ourselves and we find that prime, that anchor that gives us the strength, okay? Now, those of us with a faith-based background, we know exactly what that is, right? Some people quote scripture, some people sing songs, some people talk about the things that God's already done good for them. Those are the primers or the anchors that we use. Something bad happens, he's my rock and my fortress, my God, in him will I trust, right? And we have these things that we go into, and those things we go into keeps our mind from overwhelming us with thoughts of protecting itself. And we say, no, we get to have courage. No, we're not going to live in fear. No, I am going to express my faith. And it ends up being one of those kind of situational elements. So to you, what is a placebo? What is your placebo? What is a thing outside of your body that you are allowing to process inside of your body that is either helping you or hurting you? Because, see, I'm 11 from 50, okay? And I've come down to the conclusion, life, people, things, situations, circumstances, it's a one of two H's. It's either helping me or it's hurting me. There is no in between. It's either helping or hurting. And so when you look at life in those two categories, it kind of puts, it kind of takes some of the technicalities away, right? Because I don't know about you, I could wander around in a circle for 40 years, right? I could wander around in a circle for 40 years on a technicality, right? Because it can be intellectually right, but morally wrong. You know what I'm saying? It would be nothing worse than to live my whole life and be intellectually right about something, but to be morally wrong about it and have to reap that consequence. I don't know why I said that, but I'm happy I did, right? So find your placebo. Find your thing, the thing inside of your heart that you can believe in that'll give you the strength to overcome and the strength to endure. Be your own hero. It's time to be your own hero. You are the hero of your story. You are the hero of your story. Be your hero. Be your hero. Believe in you. You have to believe in you. It's the way it goes. All right. So first we think, then we feel. So first we think, then we feel, and then we act based upon those feelings and thoughts. We go into an ascending pattern of thought where our thoughts are giving us good feelings, and our good feelings are producing good actions, and those good actions are giving us good outcomes, and those good outcomes are represented by good behaviors, and those good behaviors turn into great personality traits or traits of character that are exceptional, right? Or it's opposite world of that. And we thinking thoughts we shouldn't think. We feeling things we shouldn't feel. Our actions don't line up with nothing. Our blueprint and our roadmap is in complete states of incongruency. We feel stressed out all the time. We're hyperventilating. And then now all of a sudden our actions are turning into behaviors that we don't accept, the behaviors that we don't want. We're trying to change. We just wish we can change. If only I had the strength to change. If only I had the strength to overcome, the strength to persevere, the strength to stop doing this. Oh, I wish God would deliver me from that, this, that, and the other. Then before long, unchecked behavior turns into flaws in our character. And so all of you go end up living your life 20, 30, 40 years with the same root of bitterness or the same seed of envy or the same thing in the heart, the same thing we won't let God deliver us from or we won't forgive ourselves for. And we end up getting somewhere and we have so many flaws in our character. Anytime somebody tries to pour water into us, it all leaks on the floor. And it can be prevented. It can be prevented early on. Let this be me reaching for you. Let this be me reaching for you to tell you that there is a better way. That you don't have to spend your whole time trying to fix things that aren't even broken. It's not even broken. It's a symptom, dog. It's a symptom. It's not even you. That is not you. That is a symptom of who you do not want to be. And because you keep putting your energy in where you don't want to go, and you understand that where focus goes, energy flows, you keep focusing on what you don't want, and guess what you end up getting? Exactly what you didn't want, because you put all your energy into not wanting it. Why did the dude say think on things that are pure, think on things that are lovely, think on things that are good? He didn't say don't think about this. He said think about these things. This is the highway. This is the ascending pattern. This is how we go upwards, not downwards. Does that make sense? Yes, that makes sense. Absolutely, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Is it comfortable? No, it is uncomfortable. Why? Because it means we have to do something. We have to change. We have to own our own situations. We can't blame it on other people forever. Can't blame it on other people forever. So think, feel, act. Think, feel, act. Interrupt that pattern. Insert a new pattern. Insert a new pattern in your thought process. Ask yourself different questions. Ask yourself different questions. We have to. We owe it to ourselves to ask different questions. We do. 100%. Okay. So thoughts are inward experiences that produce outward expressions and feelings, okay? And micro expressions, right? We understand certain things, but we're not going to wear this thing out, but we understand certain things around micro expressions, that there's places that the face fire with certain functionalities that everybody does. Oh, I don't. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Just haven't taken the time to figure out where it's at. And that's caused through thinking and emotions. Right? It's an emotional response, and it's produced in the face, right? So thoughts are inward experiences that are processed outwardly. Feelings are something you feel, okay? It's something that you emotionally, inwardly, you experience. There's a response, and externally you show it, right? You ever heard somebody say they wear their feelings on their sleeves? What they talking about? It means you can see exactly what they're thinking. They can't hide their face. They got all these different clever ways to talk about people who can't hide their emotions. That's a good thing. You want those kind of people in your life. Nobody wants to be around a chameleon. Somebody who's just stone cold, a stone cold killer. Nobody wants that. Get them serial killers out your life. You don't need that, right? So thoughts are inward, and they produce feelings that get expressed outward. And then based on those feelings, the actions eventually turn into behaviors, and the behaviors turn into good personality traits or bad personality traits. That's the way it goes. So now we have a situation where the whole world's going crazy, and I understand people are freaked out, okay, about this flu. But we don't have to be. And now we have people that have been living a stressed out life, and they've been living a life of fear, that now they finally have an excuse to say, oh my God, we're all going to die. You're not going to die. You're not going to die. The sitcom in your head is not real. Turn off your default mode. You got a default mode. You know that thing that when you drive in a car, but you're not really driving a car, you at the water cooler, like pretending to tell somebody off for like the 19th time, then you're never going to do it, right? You just think about it, right? Because it would be ungodly. It wouldn't be professional. But you stress yourself out because the body, and I mean, I'm going to get into the science. I've been at this for a minute, but the body has a unique way of not being able to tell the difference sometimes between what's actually something happened externally and something that we're producing with our mind, right? It does. So it's enough. It's enough. Maybe we'll do this again on Wednesday. We'll see how it goes. Peace out. Thank you very much.